Housing affordability has gotten out of control in the United States. In 1940, the median cost of a home was just $2,938. A brand new car would set you back just $920. A movie ticket ran 30 cents and a gallon of gas was only 10 cents. And of households that were both homeowners with two adults living in the house, only 15% worked outside of the home. Yet the median income back then was $1,368. That means that the median cost of a home was only about 2.15 times the median salary. Fast forward 40 years to the greatest year in history, the median cost of a home was $47,200. A movie ticket was $2.69. Gasoline was $1.19, and Ataris were an American household. Yet despite record inflation, high interest rates, and economic uncertainty, the median income was $21,020. This means that the median cost of a home was still just over 2 times the median salary. Fast forward to today, and the median sales price of a home is $379,100, and a new car will set you back just over 49 grand. A movie ticket will run you $11.75, and a gallon of gas is just over $3.38. And it's this next bit of data that exposes the problem. The median household income just sits over $74,000 in the United States. This means that in just 80 years, the median cost of a home has gone from just over 2 times the median salary to over 5 times the median salary. And on top of that, due to record inflation, the cost of goods has also gone up substantially. Does this make it harder than ever to buy a home? While some folks could argue that the Great Depression and earlier times in American history could be harder, I think it's fair to say that in the past 80 years, now it is harder to buy a home than ever before. So is the real estate market going to crash and give us a break on prices? If it's not, what on earth can we do? Well, I'm here to try to bring clarity in a time of uncertainty regarding this issue. Regarding the real estate market crashing anytime soon, I do not believe this to be the case, and I think it is dangerous for folks to try to time the market, especially for those who are not seasoned players within the specific market they are trying to time. And even trying to time a dip in real estate doesn't really make sense for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you're already a homeowner, it's likely your house would dip as well, thus a net zero. However, even if you're not a homeowner, we have to look at the data. And over the past 6 recessions in America, home prices have only dropped twice. Significantly, they've only dropped 1 time, and that was the 2008 recession. The other, they only dropped just under 2%. That's right, over the past 6 recessions, home prices have only dropped twice, and one of those under 2%. For the time that real estate went down 20%, keep in mind, within 5 years, it had risen back up to higher than it was before. In fact, you'll never find any time in American history that we have on record where a 10-year period real estate has saw depreciation. It has only appreciated overall and over the course of 10 years plus. So while folks can point to real estate prices going down, keep in mind they have to use a shorter timeline to do that, because history shows houses only increase in value. I mean, think about it. Do you know any home that you drive by on the way home from work or on the way to work that costs less today than it used to? Do your parents? Nobody does, because that's not what happens. So what did happen in 2008, and why would today be different? Well, let me explain. For one, 2008 was much less of a housing crash and much more of a financial crash.
What's going on?
Oh, so Dick finally wants to know what's going on.
Frank?
Methinks somebody made a boo-boo. Maybe we didn't know how to use Quicken. Yeah, that could be it.
What happened were there were a lot of loans being written that simply should not have been written.
You get a call! 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 You get a call!
Interest-only loans, adjustable rate mortgages that were very risky for the borrower and for the lender. Some of these loans were known as subprime mortgages, which is a mortgage for someone who is, you could say, credit challenged. Many of these loans didn't even require documentation such as proof of income and various other things that lenders require today for underwriting. Millions of folks ended up getting mortgages that should not have got a mortgage and would not be qualified today for a mortgage. To top that off, the mortgage lenders did not mind writing these loans because these loans were then sold to investors. But here's the problem. Investors aren't going to buy a lot of subprime mortgages. They typically buy their mortgages in groups. So those groups, bundles, whatever you want to call it, of mortgages would typically have a bunch of well-qualified borrowers and solid mortgages, if you want to call them that, in a bundle with some subprime mortgages. However, the investors were being deceived into believing that was the case, when in fact, what investors were buying during that time was actually much more subprime than they realized. As the economy shifted and these interest-only payments became adjusted with now principal added in, millions of unqualified borrowers ended up defaulting, throwing a bunch of homes back on market. Creating millions of foreclosures. This led to inventory being available in ample supply. Fast forward to today, and all of those mortgage practices that used to be have been done away with. Laws have been passed and regulations are now in place to prevent that type of borrower from getting a loan until they become a qualified borrower. So while the foreclosures back then were folks who had no equity in their home, so when that home became foreclosed on and there was ample supply of homes on the market, those homes were then discounted, which caused the reduction in value. Fast forward to today, we have a very different dynamic of what's going on here. One dynamic alone would be the ample supply of broadband internet nationwide, even in rural areas.
I am now about to send a signal from this laptop through our local ISP, racing down fiber optic cable at the speed of light to San Francisco, bouncing off a satellite in geosynchronous orbit to Lisbon, Portugal, where the data packets will be handed off to submerged transatlantic cables terminating in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and transferred across the continent via microwave relays back to our ISP and the X10 receiver attached to this.
This, mixed with the COVID pandemic, fueled the work-at-home movement. Due to preference, government regulation, and company policies, many folks stayed home and were able to continue working during the COVID pandemic. Everybody expected the housing market to crash due to COVID. The opposite actually happened. Folks were staying in their homes longer, they were working from home, and now folks wanted more home. They wanted more square footage. They wanted the right home office. They wanted to get the perfect spot for them to conduct business within their home. Builders were then accommodating by building homes with floor plans to match buyer demand. As COVID created many problems logistically with shipping, there were problems in many other areas as well, as roofers, drywall hangers, mortgage brokers, and many other folks could not get to work to do their job, or at best, it hindered their productivity. To top that off, the government kept interest rates low during that time to keep the housing market going strong. This created a severe inventory shortage, which we still experience to this day. Currently, we sit at over 4 million homes short on the market. With so much demand and so little supply, a crash in pricing is unlikely on housing or anything else that shares that same economic situation. So yes, we are in a housing crisis. However, do I think it is wise to wait for a housing crash to purchase your next home? No, which brings me to my final point. What can those who are not yet homeowners do to attain home ownership? While this is a major issue, and I certainly understand and pray for the first-time home buyers out there and folks just getting started on their journey to home ownership. Yes, it is harder than ever before, and I do not deny that. However, for those that follow the right path and work very hard, you can become a homeowner as well. And while you could say, sure, he's a real estate agent, of course he wants you to become a homeowner. There are those who practice the profession that they do because they truly believe in what they are doing. For me, I love real estate because I know that it can take generations out of poverty. In fact, the average net worth of a homeowner is 400 times greater than that of a renter. The data shows that children are more likely to graduate from both high school and college and less likely to be involved in criminal activity. Just by growing up in a household where they are homeowners instead of renters. So what are the best steps to take to purchase a home? Well, number one, you need to get out of debt. So I recommend getting vehicles paid off. So I recommend getting credit card debt wiped out. All that stuff so you're in the best position to free up the most income. Homeownership can be a blessing or it can be a curse. And a lot of that depends on your bank account, to be honest with you. When the hot water heater goes out and you have savings, or the HVAC goes out in the middle of summertime but you have an emergency fund, what would become a worry now is more of a nuisance. So if you're having trouble coming up with that down payment or putting money aside, the first step is to examine the outgo and see what can be cut. Maybe you're not in a situation where you could cut out car payments or something right now. Well, cut out all that you can. Get yourself in a position where you have the most money freed up to save, invest, and build wealth, which owning real estate will put you in the best possible position to do so. Next is to begin saving for a down payment on your house. This is going to be separate than your emergency fund. You need money set aside for emergencies. However, you also need other money set aside for the down payment on your home. While I certainly do recommend 20% down to avoid PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, which is insurance that you pay for somebody else. The mortgage company actually is insured, not you. So it's dumb. Don't pay it. If you can at all avoid it, please avoid it. However, with record inflation, record home prices, and high interest rates, many folks don't have 20% to put down. And that's okay. Put down as much as you can. But also keep in mind there are other options, and that's why it's always good to chat with a qualified lender, as you have a variety of other loan options, some of which are even zero down. Once you have your emergency fund in place and you have your debt under control, your next step should be to speak with that qualified lender to go over your options to see about how much you're going to need to budget exactly for down payment, closing cost, inspections, appraisal, and so forth. From there, you're going to want to get with a high-octane real estate agent. You'll want somebody who has good online reviews, does a good amount of transactions, and knows how to navigate through the process. Your agent should have the heart of a teacher. They should be willing to listen, they should follow up, and they should answer their phone when you need them. Your agent should also be searching out homes for you daily, as well as checking off-market properties. They should be well educated to navigate you through the process to avoid any pitfalls that may arise, and they should be proficient in negotiating on your behalf. I also recommend an agent who is full-time. This is super important, as when you need something that's an emergency, you don't want your agent to be working a 12-hour shift and they can't answer their phone. And lastly, there are other creative options. For example, some buyers actually will buy a duplex and then rent out the other half, thus getting much of the mortgage payment, if not all of it in some cases, taken care of by the renter as they pay off their piece of real estate. The beautiful thing is you can then move into your next home and repeat. Once you get into duplex and above though, keep in mind loan options may vary. You'll want to talk with a qualified lender to navigate through that process as well. Thank y'all for watching. I'm Chris Overbay, the Blue Collar Agent. Y'all have a very blessed week and I will see you next time.